Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We are going to get started in just a moment. We just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to join before we begin the session. I can see that we have people joining from across the country, which is excellent. We are so excited to see all of you. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Mercedes, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Specialist with Charity Village. As we are gathering here in the virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. As a settler on this land, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe of Fort William First Nation. For those who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. In addition to our online job board, organizations can also post volunteer positions. So if you were looking for work or to recruit talent in the sector, Charity Village is a great place to start. We also have a ton of excellent resources for nonprofit professionals, including online courses, articles, fundraising tools, and free webinars like the one we are presenting today. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to quickly run through some housekeeping items. You may have noticed when you joined the webinar that you were automatically put on mute. Since we have hundreds of participants in today's session, it is important for us to minimize the amount of background noise so that everyone can clearly hear the presentation. But you can still ask questions and make comments using the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel. Look for that at the bottom of your screen. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions as you think of them, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. You can also email your questions to webinars@charityvillage.com. If you happen to encounter any technical issues with the webinar, whether with viewing the presentation or with the audio, please let us know in the question box or by sending us an email. We will do our best to get any technical difficulties resolved as quickly as possible. But in a worst case scenario, please remember that we are recording today's webinar and we will send you the full recording by email tomorrow. So if you get called away or disconnected, you will still be able to view the full presentation. And with that, I would like to welcome our presenter for today, Wanda Kusamajada Pichette, the founder of Grow Career Development. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me today, Mercedes. Okay, I guess I'm going to start. So thank you everyone for coming today. As you guys can see, my topic is leveraging AI for career advancement. And as Mercedes said, my name is Wanda Kusumajuda Pichette, but you can call me Wanda KP. I know this is silly. Hopefully one day you'll know me like Madonna. Maybe I'll be a household name. I don't know. Anyways, I am the lead career development educator and founder of Grow Career Development, or Grow CD. Let's start, shall we? But before we get into that, I would like to acknowledge that Grow CD webinars are presented from Vancouver, BC, Canada, on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. So this is our session agenda today. Getting noticed for career advancement in nonprofit organizations, considerations when using AI, and then we're going to get into the topic on hand, which is leveraging AI for career advancement. And then, as Mercedes had mentioned, we will have a wonderful question and answer session. All right, so let's start. So this is a little bit of an overview. So I personally have worked in nonprofit and government-funded programs in BC since 2010. And I was very lucky in 2021 where I was asked to write an article for Charity Village. And my first article with Charity Village was Advancing Your Career, How to Get Noticed in a Nonprofit Workplace. Now, the link to this full article will be at the end of the webinar. I will have a list of sources. Whenever I do research, I will always include that source in the webinar as well as at the end of the presentation. So one of the things that I did when I was working on this article is I reflected my own personal experience. So first of all, I was a manager in a nonprofit organization, and I got noticed and asked for a promotion by my managers. On top of that, I was also a manager when I wrote the article because I really wanted to share with others how I actually noticed people that I wanted to promote from within the organization. And I really felt that this was something that I could share with people. So the article identifies some proactive career advancement strategies to get noticed in nonprofits. But one of the things that I really focused on in this article is the key to get noticed in nonprofits is to emphasize your soft skills, such as personality and emotional intelligence, that align with the organization rather than just your hard and technical skills. Now, I have to be frank with you. If you don't have the hard skills or the technical skills to do the job, yeah, you still might not be doing well with career advancement. But you want to make sure that your hard skills are strong, but also your soft skills. And in nonprofits, your passion for the cause, your connection with people, that's going to really be a decider when it comes to promotion and career advancement. All right. So let's talk a little bit about getting noticed for career advancement before we even get into the AI element. So the first part of getting noticed for career advancement is emphasizing emotional intelligence and strong soft skills. I think this is self-explanatory. You want to actually show to your future career advancement or your managers that you understand how to work with people, you understand how to get along with coworkers and maintain very strong relationships. Next, you want to show passion for your organization's cause, social development, and community building. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on and how AI can help you with that. You also want to be noticed in a sense that you want to raise your voice. Now, if you want to be noticed for promotion or career advancement, you can't be quiet. You have to get noticed. You need to speak up at meetings. You need to provide ideas, take initiative. But one of the things that we know from working in nonprofits, a lot of the times if we provide an idea, there really isn't a team of people that can implement it for you. So just be ready. If you bring up a really great idea, then you most likely might have to be the one that implements it. But this is a great opportunity because implementing your idea shows your ability to take initiative and also your project management skills. And the next one here in getting noticed in career advancement is strengthening your administrative and reporting skills. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I am looking at my staff for possible promotions is how are their writing skills? How do they write their emails? Are they concise? What's the tone like? How are the reports? Are they spell checked? Are they professional looking? This is important because if I'm going to promote somebody from within, I want that person to represent well in future emails or correspondence with higher management and outside organizations. The next one is effective communication with supervisors. So obviously, if you want to get noticed for career advancement, you have to have good communication with your supervisors, and you might actually need to have that conversation. let them know you are interested in career advancement, right? Don't keep it a secret, right? You want to actually maybe have that conversation, say, hey, so and so, again, it depends on how you speak to your manager. But yeah, so and so, I am actually really interested in taking in more responsibilities or maybe looking at different positions. What do you think about that, for example? So you want to have that effective communication with your supervisors. Number six, in the beginning, when you are looking at career advancement, you often in nonprofit organizations, you want to think more career advancement and less the money. A lot of the times, if you want to get noticed in the same organization and you are eventually promoted, the salary increase might not be major, but in the beginning, that's really okay because you really want to focus on the skills that you are gaining and the experience you're gaining. And like I said, you don't think so much about money in the beginning, but later on, you can use that experience and the skills that you have to negotiate higher salaries. And the last one here is you want to be a little bit more proactive in your career advancement strategies. I know a lot of people tend to say, you know what, I'm going to put good feelings out. And if it comes to me, it comes to me. But I tend to be a little bit more proactive in my process if that what I'm looking at. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how AI can help with some proactive strategies. Okay? All right. So I cannot talk about AI without discussing some considerations before we move forward. And the first one is what type of AI are we talking about today, right? So we are talking about generative AI. Now, this is my immediate disclaimer. I am not an IT professional. I don't have the ability to kind of explain all the interworkings of it, but I will give you a slight orientation or introduction on what my understanding is. And I'm going to be providing you more of a user experience really than the IT background. So generative AI, what is that? So generative AI sets itself apart from other forms of machine learning and artificial intelligence in its generative nature. Rather than merely analyzing data, generative AI produces new data in all forms of media, text, code, images, audio, video, and more. Now, I cannot speak for all generative AI, so I want you to know that my focus during this webinar is only going to be ChatGPT 3.5, which is the current free version. And one thing I would like for you guys to know is the free version only provides information in text and code. Images, audio, video, and more, that's the available through you, but through the paid version of ChatGPT. Now, I also have the paid version because I wanted to kind of compare in preparation for my presentation. However, in the paid version, there are plugins that allow you to do more. Now, if ChatGPT is more of a brainstorming tool for you, then the free version might just be good enough. So I would be remiss to do a webinar about ChatGPT and not actually show you what it looks like. So as you can see here, this is a screenshot of the interface that I did over the weekend. I actually wrote there on the top in Canada because I don't know what it looks like in other countries. So I just want to be fair in saying that this was retrieved in Canada. And as you can see, if you haven't used ChatGPT before, it has some prompts and some ideas on how you can use it. And you would type your information where it says message ChatGPT. Now, I probably should have edited this screenshot. My logo will not be in ChatGPT. Okay? I should have actually made this a bigger screenshot. Sorry about that. All right. So one thing they do before you even use it is they give you tips and actually a disclaimer. Well, two disclaimers. So the first thing is they're going to say, okay, these are some things that you can ask. This is what you can do with it. And then in the middle, it says, don't share sensitive info. And I think we all know this. The chat history is reviewed and they use it for improving their services for future models. So you don't want to actually put anything private in that chat box. So this is their first disclaimer. And the second disclaimer that they have on this, just before you even start using it, is it says check your facts. So they admit that they can get things wrong, right? So sometimes ChatGPT can give you inaccurate information. So they're basically saying, disclaimer, please don't follow it as gospel. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about ChatGPT and using AI. So the first thing that I do need to explain to you, models such as ChatGPT are trained on petabytes. Apparently that's a lot. My verbiage is only as much as gigabytes, so petabytes, I believe, is a lot of data collected from across the internet. It says Wang 2024, that's my inline citation. I have an article that Wang wrote about generative AI versus other AI, and you'll see the sources later on. And basically what he explained is ChatGPT actually uses information from the internet, right? So what does that mean? ChatGPT's 3.5 free version was updated with information up to January 2022. What does that mean for you? That means that if there was an event that you want to ask about that happened after January 2022, most likely ChatGPT won't know what you're talking about. And one key thing that I want to emphasize is the information that is fed into ChatGPT is actually from the internet. And remember, the internet is written by people. So the information that it gets is from websites that are good and also sometimes websites that are not so great. So this is always something that you should consider when you are getting information from ChatGPT. Privacy. So I mentioned a little bit about ChatGPT's disclaimer about privacy. Basically, the information inputted into ChatGPT can be used and become theirs unless data control settings are changed. So this is something you need to know about. There are some settings in the free version and the paid version under data control where you can actually, it's just a toggle button where you can actually say, hey, I do not want for you to use it for training purposes, or I'm all right with it. Now, honestly speaking, again, like I said, I don't know everything about it. So I actually found a LinkedIn article written by Jaro in 2024, earlier this year. And it says, stop using ChatGPT until you adjust these privacy settings. Now, I have this link at the end of the webinar, and essentially it'll explain all of the things. That said, though, even with these settings that you've changed, I actually think that, having worked in nonprofits and government-funded programs, client information and any type of confidential information should not be inputted into ChatGPT, even if you have changed your privacy settings. I think this is really important for us to all know that. So what does that mean as well? That might mean that you wouldn't put detailed resume information in there. You wouldn't put clients' contact information and their addresses and so on into ChatGPT because they could use this information. So just be careful with that. Next, I'm going to talk about inaccuracy. So we saw in the disclaimer for ChatGPT before you start it that there are inaccuracies. And I found this really funny. They call them hallucinations. AI hallucinations. Instead of saying errors, But basically, AI hallucinations is a phenomenon wherein a large language model, or LLM, which basically just means that it's all coming from the internet, often a generated AI chatbot or computer vision tool, perceives patterns or objects that are non-existent or imperceptible to human observers, creating outputs that are nonsensical or altogether inaccurate. Now, this is a quote from an article that I got from the IBM website that was written earlier today. But if you actually read between the lines, it's basically saying AI can lie, which I'm sorry, that's a harsh word, but I can't think of any other word to describe it. Because essentially, what happens is the chatbot or ChatGPT is asked a question and it feels pressured into answering that question, even though it doesn't really have the answer from the data that it has on hand. So, what it can do from time to time is to make up answers and also make up sources. So, whatever you are using ChatGPT for, please be careful if you're using it to write papers or if you're writing, official documents. You don't want to just take whatever sources that it provides to you as true. You need to definitely double check it. But if it's just for brainstorming and things like that, I don't think it actually hurts too much if it gives you some ideas of certain things and it's not actually written theoretically or legally. Okay. And that's my perception of that. The next is bias. Now, it's odd to say that AI has bias, but it does have bias. So AI bias, also referred to as machine learning bias or algorithm bias, refers to AI systems that produce biased results that reflect and perpetuate human biases within a society, including historical and current social inequality. So the IBM website, IBM Data and AI team wrote an article last year about this. Again, I will have the link to this at the end of the webinar. And basically, what they're referring to as bias is really because, as I had earlier said, the data set or the information that it's pulling from is information that they have on the internet. And we all know the internet is written by people and people have biases. So there are times where ChatGPT will pull in all of this information, including the skewed bias that there might be online. So please be careful about, again, using ChatGPT as the authority on certain topics. We always need to review this information and use just our common sense in this process. So, have I thoroughly scared you yet? I hope I haven't. Even after all that, I love using ChatGPT because I use it for the things that I think have the best use for ChatGPT. And these are the best uses, I believe. And I've also attended some other conferences, and I think we're all on the same page that ChatGPT or generative AI is really good for brainstorming, for answering basic questions, editing or analyzing large bodies of text, and even developing bodies of text. Now, I use it the most for brainstorming. I have to be very honest with you. I find that brainstorming tends to be where I might have an idea and I'll ask for additional ideas within that. And I'll look at what ChatGPT gives me and I'll say, I like point number 1 and point number 3, but let's talk a little bit more about that. And from there, I can develop ideas. I can develop article ideas, webinar ideas, campaign ideas, and even if I'm working with my students. So I also teach workplace preparation now at colleges, and maybe during a class, I might think, you know what, I want to have more of a discussion going. So I might go to ChatGPT and say, I'm teaching this topic right now. what kind of discussions can I have that will last maybe 30 minutes because I have an extra 30 minutes in class to be able to facilitate this conversation, right? So it's really useful, I believe, in brainstorming. I personally use it the most for brainstorming and answering basic questions. Okay, so we're all on the same page with AI. Let's move forward. So, leveraging AI for career advancement. The first one that we're going to talk about is the point that I meant earlier about emotional intelligence and strong soft skills. Now, one thing that you would probably not realize is that ChatGPT can do a lot of emotional intelligence training modules. So I'll give you an example of what it could be. For example, ChatGPT can create a scenario when you need to navigate a difficult conversation with a coworker, helping you practice empathy and effective communication. Now, one of the things that I really realized while I was doing this research, man, this would have been great when, early on in my career when I was navigating the workplace, trying to make a good impression on my coworkers and my managers. And I would have actually learned how to handle certain situations that I was just handling off the cuff and realizing I didn't handle it well. So this is actually really good. So I have created a ChatGPT link to how this might look like. So Charlie, do you mind putting this into the chat box, please, so that everybody can have a look at what this looks like?
Yes, he's popped that into the chat there, everyone. So if you're unable to actually click the link, just let us know in the Q&A box, please.
So everybody should be able to see this. I wanted to do a demo of ChatGPT, but I was a little bit afraid. Sometimes when I have streaming and Zoom and everything going on, sometimes ChatGPT can be slow, and I've seen other presenters have that. So what I've done is I've put in a scenario into ChatGPT, and this is a result that ChatGPT gave me. So as you can see, it says create a scenario where I need to navigate a difficult conversation with a coworker. And I decided, oh, let's look at something easy about her loud voice when speaking on the phone. And I would like this to help me practice empathy and effective communication. So as you can see, ChatGPT builds a scenario and they say, okay, well, you've got an open plan office and your colleague, Sarah, sorry if there's a Sarah there, this is just a scenario. She's a wonderful person, but she speaks really loudly. Now, you want to talk to her, but you don't know how to do that. But you know what? ChatGPT has these modules and scenarios, and it can give you some ideas on how you might want to approach it. Now, again, you might know this already, but I really believe that there are times where there are some scenarios that are very difficult to navigate. One scenario that I personally had is one of my coworkers at one point had problems with body odor. And I apologize for bringing this up during the webinar, but that was a very difficult conversation to have. My coworkers had actually said, Wanda, you seem to be close to her, so can you talk to her about it? And I was thinking, my gosh, how do I approach this conversation? Now, you know what I did? I talked to a few people and made a few notes and I figured it out and I did it. But if I had ChatGPT at the time, I could maybe put the scenario into ChatGPT and it might be able to give me some ideas on how to handle that difficult conversation. Okay? So, since we've all seen that, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay? Next, we're going to talk about reflection journals. Now, again, this is emotional intelligence and strong soft skills. You can do more or less anything with ChatGPT and ask for some help. But an example that I have is maybe you could use ChatGPT to prompt you to reflect on a time you felt stressed at work and help you explore strategies to manage similar situations in the future. Now, obviously, there are many different scenarios, but let's say, for example, you were working in the workplace and you handled the situation badly. Maybe you had pressure, your deadline was looming, there was a lot of work, and maybe you snapped at a coworker. And after that, it was never the same. So this might be where you realize, you know what? Um, I might have damaged that relationship. I'm going to have a conversation with her. How do I not do that again? So this is where you can go to ChatGPT and you can type out, when I'm stressed at work, I feel I become snappy, I become impatient. What could I do so that I don't do that and affect my coworkers? And ChatGPT can give you an idea of what you can do to prevent that from happening in the future, right? Those are just some ideas that I have and how I would use it. Because you know what? Nobody's perfect. We try to find the best solution for everything. But sometimes we realize maybe didn't handle it well. This is actually an outlet for you to actually discuss it with, somebody other than maybe your family and stuff. So next is showing passion for the organization's cause. Um, so often, what I would do when I was working in organizations, and I have to be specific with you, I worked in nonprofit organizations that were immigrant serving. So a lot of the time, what would happen is I would read articles that were relevant to helping newcomers to Canada, helping them work on their soft skills, hard skills, and things like that. And it would be great if you, in your organization, could actually share that with your other colleagues. So, what I would do is I would read an article that's relevant to my organization's cause, and then I might actually write a summary and send it to my coworkers to share the information. Now, in this situation, ChatGPT can actually help make it easier. So what I would do a lot of the times is I'd send an email and send the link and say, "Oh, this is a great article." But my coworkers, even though they appreciate it, they might think, "Oh, you know what? I don't really have time to read it. I'll read the link later," etc. So if you really want to make it impactful, you can actually copy the entire article into ChatGPT and have it summarize it into a few bullet points, right? So again, I have another shared ChatGPT link where I just copied that article that I wrote about from Charity Village. And I basically said, "Hey, ChatGPT, can you summarize this into 5 bullet points?" And then what I could do is I could send an email to my colleagues. These are the key 5 bullet points. If you don't have time to read it, but this is also the link. And this will actually show your passion for your organization's cause, show that you're helpful, that you're a team player. So this is actually something that I really wish I had a long time ago when I was working with a team as well. So I'm not going to show you right now. I'm just going to ask you to have a look at that ChatGPT link just to get an idea of how it can be used and how ChatGPT will provide answers to you. The next thing that we're going to talk about is raising your voice and taking initiative. So I don't want you to scream at people, obviously. I'm just saying, speak up, If you really want to do career advancement, you want to get noticed, you really need to make sure that people are seeing that you are interested in taking the initiative, you want to speak and share your contributions during meetings and things like that. So what does ChatGPT do to help you in this? It can help with idea development and presentation. So let's say, for example, you're going to go into a meeting and you have this brilliant idea on how to deliver a campaign. And during this idea, you're thinking, well, is it going to sound sophisticated enough? Have I thought of all of the elements? Well, you know what? You can put this project idea into ChatGPT and have it kind of brainstorm with you. You can say, what's missing from this? What have I not thought about? And you can refine the concept. You can even actually say, how can I segue this conversation into the meeting that it's smooth? And what words can I use that will actually describe what my plans are? So this is really helpful in before you actually go into these meetings on how you're going to deliver your content. And to make yourself even more confident, even before you present the concept, you might want to even prepare with Chat GPT. You might say, okay, this is the concept, it's great, but can you actually anticipate some questions for me and how I could probably answer it? Now, a lot of the time, going into a meeting and presenting your idea in front of a lot of people can be nerve wracking. So having this type of preparation beforehand can actually calm your nerves. And also for those that might be introverts, whereas believe it or not, I used to be somewhat of an introvert, but now I'm a practiced extrovert. That's why I talk all the time. But essentially, if you're not really comfortable with this public speaking and you're not used to doing this is a great tool to have to build up your confidence and actually walk into it quite calmly. All right. The next one that I'm going to talk about is strengthening administrative or reporting skills. I think you guys know that ChatGPT can help you with that. Automating routine administrative tasks using AI improves efficiency and allows for more focus on high impact work that supervisors will notice. So I think you might have done this already. I used to do this in the workplace. I would create email templates, or I might even create text-based templates. So, I was working with clients, and some clients will ask questions that are similar each time, and I might want to actually build some type of template answer with ChatGPT that will allow me to actually focus on other things that are important for my clients rather than just answering those questions that I continuously get. So you could even create like a frequently asked questions section, work with ChatGPT, and every time you're about to write an email answering that specific question, you just copy paste it into your email. So definitely it'll save you time and you will look more efficient to your manager as well. Other things that it can do is it can customize workflows. So you can actually describe your routine task to ChatGPT and ask for a streamlined workflow. So let's say, for example, I used to be a career advisor in a nonprofit organization. The process of onboarding a new client, I can maybe put in some information on what my process is, and ChatGPT can actually streamline the process, maybe give me some ideas of what I can template to quicken the process. And this also often will end up identifying some spare time for you where you could actually, when you're trying to be proactive, is volunteer for other events or anything related to your organization's cause. So it will definitely be a plus in showing that you're effective and also helpful. And the last one, I think this is really important as well, because if you want to be a manager or want to move up within your organization, your reporting skills are really important, but you also need to know that you're identifying all of your KPIs, right? So you can actually have it analyze your job description. it could also analyze the job description for the job that you want or a job posting that you want, right? So let's say, for example, you want to be a manager in your organization. If you can get a hold of a job description or a past job posting, you can put that information into ChatGPT. You just copy the text, paste it into ChatGPT, and ask it to analyze key performance indicators that you can kind of focus on. So this is actually useful for your current position. It could also be useful for future positions that you want to actually move into in your career advancement process. Next, we are going to talk about that effective communication with supervisors. You can role play conversations. Now, a lot of the times when you want to talk to your supervisor and let them know, hey, I am interested in advancing, how can I have this conversation with that person? I'm a little bit afraid, so I don't ever want to do it. Well, you know what? ChatGPT can role play this with you. So there you have it. It says practice discussing your career goals with your supervisor using ChatGPT. Charlie, if you can put this shared ChatGPT link into the chat box, that'd be great. So everybody can kind of have a look at what prompt I put in. And basically, the prompt that I put in is, ChatGPT, can you help me with dialogue, sample dialogue? And that was like really interesting because it gave you some ideas of how you can kind of segue the conversation, how you can approach your manager, how to handle it. And again, the fear of approaching your manager to have this conversation will actually be less because you kind of have anticipated it. You've already prepared your points. You've already prepared how you're going to smooth segue this into your conversation with your manager. And then the last one on this slide is also for effective communication. You can also address some feedback from past reviews. So most organizations on a yearly basis will do performance reviews. And what you can do is you can maybe input some of the feedback that you've gotten from past performance reviews, and ChatGPT can analyze the common areas that need improvement and maybe propose a plan. You could also ask ChatGPT to say, well, you know, how can I make it known that to my manager that I am working on this? Well, you know, ChatGPT can give you some segue ideas on how to start that conversation. And then you would maybe go to your manager and say, you know what, you know how you mentioned during my performance review last year or last week about this. I've really been thinking about it, so this is what I'm doing. So this also, that effective communication with your supervisor is really going to get you noticed. All right. So the next one I have is, as you saw earlier, I said, you know, when you're thinking about career advancement, don't think about money yet. Think about the other benefits that you can get. Well, you know what? ChatGPT can also give you some ideas of what benefits you get from this growth that does not necessarily need to be monetary. And from those answers, you might get other ideas on how this information or these skills can work into other positions and so on. So again, I also have another shared ChatGPT link where I asked ChatGPT to give me some examples of successful careers built through strategic, non-monetary gains. And essentially, it gave me a few ideas or areas and skills, and also gave me ideas of what I can pursue for professional development through the organization as well. So definitely the answers can really lead to other brainstorming elements in this process. And last but not least, my last point here, proactive career advancement strategies. Now, like I said, with career advancement, I believe a little bit being more proactive is going to help you than just hoping that it'll happen. Where you might want to even approach it even a little bit more strategic, where you might go into ChatGPT and say, you know what? I'm going to have a performance review next week. ChatGPT, this is everything, well, not everything, all of the key contributions and achievements I've had from last year's performance review. I'm going to list it all together. I'm going to ask you to write it in a professional and attractive way. And you might be able to use this list to send to your supervisor before the performance review, or even to bring it to the performance review to hand to your supervisor to have a discussion about how you've gone maybe above and beyond your position. And obviously at performance reviews, this is where you talk about career advancement and possibly salary raises as well. So this could be a really good tool for you in this process. Okay, so I am done. Question and answer time. Mercedes, can you help me with this, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Wanda. So the first question, is there a difference in the way that new grads should leverage AI in comparison to Gen X staff?
Oh, wow, that is a deep question. So, new grads, we're looking at generation Y, not really Y, actually Z, right? Using GPT, let me just kind of have a look at that question again. It's the very bottom one.
I can
Oh,
just reread it, Wanda, if that works.
yeah.
So
Could
is there
you
a
reread it?
difference? For
Yeah.
sure. So is there a difference in the way that new grads should leverage AI in comparison to Gen X staff?
Um, It's hard for me to say because it depends on what they're planning to use it for. If it's really career advancement, I think the younger generations might be more comfortable with it, so they can maybe find more in-depth uses for it. But that said, though, AI in this process, we don't want to rely too heavily on AI, and the newer generations might kind of take it as, oh, this is a great tool and this will teach me. I want you to always think that for the younger generations and the new grads, if you're using AI, it should be a tool, but you should always make sure you're double checking everything. Generation X, which is my generation right now as well, I might have more work experience. So when I look at whatever I get from ChatGPT or generative AI, I will use it, I will compare it to my experience, and I might be able to say, oh, I don't think that's right. That's not from my experience. So they might use it differently, but from a new grad standpoint, it's kind of hard to kind of say how it would affect your future in that sense. I hope I kind of answered that.
Yes, thank you, Wanda. So the next question, what about copyright issues? So if ChatGPT does not provide a valid source, who will claim the copyright?
So that's a really good thing. So essentially, copyright issues. So for example, this session that I have, I would say that I use ChatGPT to help me in the process, for example. But there's no specific copyright unless you needed it for papers or things like that. Then yes, you would have to ask ChatGPT to give you specific sources, but from a copyright standpoint, that's quite unclear. I think from my standpoint, I apologize, I can't answer it quite clearly.
Okay, thank you. The next question, how do you leverage AI to improve your interviewing skills?
My interviewing skills, I personally haven't, just because, again, from Gen X, I have my own interviewing abilities. Um, but I teach my students to use, more of a common sense standpoint on the needs and KPIs. But I haven't used ChatGPT specifically for my personal interviewing skills. But I can perceive that it could be useful. That said, though, again, without really knowing all of the questions that your interviewer can give you, you don't want to rely only on ChatGPT for interviewing.
For sure. Thank you for those insights, Wanda. So the next question is ChatGPT capable of creating PowerPoint presentations?
Yes, it is definitely. The only problem though is that that's only available in the paid version. So I have the paid version, which is 4.0. And what the paid version allows people to do is actually access plugins, or what they call them are GPTs. And those plugins will allow you to scan the internet in real time. It'll allow you to prepare PowerPoint presentations, images, videos, etc. Now, the free version doesn't allow you to do that. But yes, you can definitely create PowerPoint presentations through ChatGPT's paid version.
Thank you. Okay. And the next question, how do you use ChatGPT to create a good resume?
Oh, you can definitely use ChatGPT to create a good resume. However, I'm an employment counselor, so I have to be very honest with you. I have a little bit of a bias because with what ChatGPT cannot do is actually see the client right in front of you. They don't understand, the client's background. You cannot, or the country they're from, and things like that. So ChatGPT can create a good resume, but it might not be able to integrate some of the other things that a person would be able to see. So, for example, English is not your first language. So maybe a resume is going to be great that's written by ChatGPT, but maybe the level of language is too high and very different from the person, right? And things like that. So you can use ChatGPT to build your resume. I would recommend, if you did do that, that you would actually work section by section with ChatGPT and actually give it more of an idea of what you're looking for in that process. Now, I know that there are some other websites that have resume editing tools and things like that, or interviewing tools. Those ones have been programmed. So ChatGPT is clean, right? It doesn't have any programming on how it's supposed to answer questions about resumes, but there are other ones that have been pre-programmed. Okay, this is how your resume needs to sound. These are the keywords you need to use and things like that. So you can definitely use those ones as well. But at the end of the day, I really feel that when you're writing your resume, you're looking at the big picture, not just the hard skills, but also the soft skills and the human behind it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you for those tips, Wanda. And then the next question is more employer focused. So they asked, can we use AI for analyzing interviews and focus groups after anonymizing the participants?
Yes, definitely. So sorry, that was a two-part question. Can you ask that first part again?
Yes, so this is more just from the employer focus point. So they're asking if they can use AI for analyzing interviews and focus groups after anonymizing the participants. So they won't have any qualifying information about the individuals.
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm not quite sure though, would they be videoing them or will they have like text context? But yes, they definitely can do that. Um, what I believe the paid versions can do is you can upload a video and you can have ChatGPT analyze the information. But again, like you said, you didn't want to have any privacy issues there. But yeah, you can also paste the information in there. But I think that actually would be a great way to kind of analyze the interviews. But again, one thing about ChatGPT is it also loses that human element, right? I had my students do a project just yesterday where they interviewed employers. And one of the employers said the way they decide on hiring somebody is based on the interview, but a little bit based on their gut feeling. Now, obviously, ChatGPT will be able to look at all of the surfacey elements of the answers in the interview, but it might not be able to identify some of the more human or soft skills that that person or that focus group might be able to demonstrate. So yes, it can help, but I would take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't make decisions fully from analyzing interviews from ChatGPT. I would still say that that human element is needed. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you for sharing those insights. And as we're approaching the 2 o'clock mark, I'm just going to ask you the final question of the day. So the question is, given the potential uses of AI, do you think job security will be an issue in the near future in the nonprofit sector?
No, I don't think so. There are elements of our task that I think that are going to kind of be kind of helped with, administrative elements, automation, writing elements. I know education will be affected. Um, However, will it overall impact the nonprofit sector? No, I don't believe so, because we have something that's different, which is that human element, that passion. You can't ask ChatGPT to make up passion for a cause and helping people. Nonprofits are always focused on helping people, so this is essentially the one thing that makes I feel job security is better in the nonprofit sector, where we focus really on the person and that human element.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Wanda, for presenting such an informative webinar. Do you happen to have any final comments before we sign off today?
Here are my sources. And I also, for my organization, I run a series of webinars in the summer on career development skills. So if anybody who is working in the field would like to join us, feel free to take a picture of my little dinosaur QR code, or click on the link. But yeah, this was great. And I really hope that everyone will actually use ChatGPT from a brainstorming standpoint for career advancement, because there's so many elements that I think will help you in planning it out strategically, preparing you, that I just really think would be wonderful to have in this process.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Wanda. I just wanted to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. Please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. The email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. You should see a survey link pop up right here in Zoom following the session as well. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll join us for our next free webinar, Optimizing Your Digital Fundraising for the Future. You can find more information on this and all of our upcoming webinars at charityvillage.com/webinars. Thanks again for joining us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.